The movie begins at Culver University in Virginia, where General Thaddeus Ross meets with Dr. Bruce Banner, a colleague and boyfriend of his daughter, Betty. They discuss an experiment that Ross claims is designed to make humans immune to gamma radiation. This experiment is part of a World War II-era super soldier program that Ross hopes to recreate. However, the experiment fails and the exposure to gamma radiation causes Bruce to transform into the Hulk whenever his heart rate exceeds 200 beats per minute. During one of these transformations, the Hulk destroys the lab and the surrounding area, resulting in the deaths of several people and injuries to General Ross, Betty, and others. Bruce becomes a fugitive from the US military, with Ross intent on weaponizing the Hulk. The scene shifts to 5 years later. Bruce is now in Brazil, where he wakes up from a nightmare about his past. He groans and begins his morning routine, which includes feeding his dog, Rick, and learning Portuguese by watching Sesame Street and using a Portuguese-English dictionary. He also practices relaxation techniques to control his heart rate and prevent himself from becoming too angry or excited. Bruce works as a day laborer at a local factory, distributing dry goods and cleaning up while avoiding confrontations with the tough guys at the bottling factory. Occasionally, he helps with electrical repairs. One day, while working, Bruce cuts himself on a metal clip. His blood falls through the grated floors onto the conveyor belts. Panicking, Bruce yells for the belt to stop. The confused workers halt the belts and Bruce cleans the area where his blood fell, ensuring it is safe before allowing the belt to resume. No one notices that a drop of Bruce's blood falls into a bottle that is sent to the US. On his way home, Bruce stops to pick up a package. Once home, he boots up his homemade computer and contacts someone named Mr. Blue in America. They are working on a cure for Bruce's condition. Bruce applies the juice from a flower to his blood but regretfully types no change. Mr. Blue suggests Bruce come to New York for more data on contamination levels, exposure rates, and radiation types. Bruce looks at a photo of Betty and regretfully says he cannot do that. The scene shifts to an old man, Stan Lee, drinking a bottle of juice. He collapses from gamma poisoning after consuming the juice from Brazil. General Ross learns about this incident from Major Kathleen Spur and quickly orders a team to Brazil. The team, led by Russian-born but American-trained Emil Blonsky, is informed by Ross that their target is a scientist who has stolen military secrets and will likely fight if cornered. As the team heads to Brazil, Bruce receives a message from Mr. Blue saying he might have found the solution but needs Bruce's blood to be sure. Bruce reluctantly sends a sample. That night, Bruce is sleeping when his dog, Rick, starts barking. Commandos have taken positions outside and are scanning the room with a camera, which Rick promptly destroys. Realizing they are there, Bruce escapes his apartment. The commandos blow off the door and fire tranquilizers at what they think is Bruce, only to find pillows. Bruce slips into the apartment below, but the commandos find a rope and get ahead of him. Bruce, hiding in Martina's apartment, waits a few minutes before making his move, but he is immediately spotted by Blonsky. Bruce makes a run for it, scrambling across rooftops and scaling buildings. He accidentally crashes into a group of men from the factory, who join the chase. Bruce ducks into the factory to evade everyone, but the gang spots a swinging chain and the troops see the gang. The gang catches up to Bruce and starts beating him, tearing off his backpack as he begs them to stop before his heart rate gets too high. The troops arrive and capture Bruce, but his anger triggers his transformation into the Hulk. The troops fire at him, but the bullets bounce off harmlessly. The Hulk roars and attacks the troops, while Blonsky finds a higher vantage point for a better shot. Just as the last soldier is taken down, Blonsky takes his shot, but the Hulk notices him. In an instant, Blonsky is face-to-face with the Hulk, who picks up a vat and slams it down, sending Blonsky flying. Hours later, Ross and Spur search Bruce's apartment and computer. Blonsky demands an explanation for what he saw, but Ross simply tells him he did a good job and that they are leaving town. Meanwhile, Bruce wakes up beside a waterfall, disoriented and with torn pants. Hearing a truck, he heads to the road where the driver tells him he's in Guatemala. The driver takes Bruce into town and Bruce begins making his way north, picking up new clothes in Mexico. Blonsky, still puzzled by the encounter with the Hulk, questions Ross further. Ross finally explains that during World War II, there were numerous special programs aimed at giving America an edge, most of them under an infantry weapons development program. One of these was a biotech force enhancement program commonly known as the Super Soldier Program. About 5 years ago, Ross revived the program and enlisted Bruce and his team to work on it, but something went terribly wrong. Ross declares that Bruce's entire body is now, in his view, the exclusive property of the US government. In a conversation about their shared experiences as fighters, Blonsky remarks that if he could have the knowledge he has now in his body 20 years ago, he would be a formidable opponent. Ross grimly smiles and suggests that something like that might be arranged. Blonsky merely stares at Ross, intrigued. Meanwhile, Bruce is in Mexico and asks a man named Stan for help, who gives him a job. The next day, Bruce is seen delivering pizzas in his old uniform. One of his stops is a science lab. He talks to the guard and manages to get upstairs. After bribing the head computer genius with a pizza, Bruce accesses a computer to search for data on his experiment, but finds that it's all gone. He contacts Mr. Blue to share the bad news and then leaves. That night, as Bruce prepares to leave and Stan is closing up, two final customers arrive, Betty and Samson. They chat with Stan while Bruce, unaware, comes downstairs. Just as Stan agrees to make them a pizza, Bruce opens the kitchen door and sees Betty. She spots him, her mouth opens in shock, but when she looks again, Bruce has disappeared. Betty runs outside but doesn't see him hiding behind a dumpster. Back inside, she persuades Stan to tell her the truth. Later, we see Bruce walking in the rain along a highway when Betty pulls up behind him. She runs to him, begging him not to leave. Soon, they arrive at the house she shares with Samson. Betty reveals that she has kept all the data from their experiment on a portable drive. Bruce says he can't stay but accepts her offer of money and a ride to the bus station the next morning. Meanwhile, Ross pulls a serum from cold storage and prepares Blonsky for injection, warning him it will hurt. Blonsky grits his teeth and tells them to proceed, eager to gain power. The next day, Bruce and Betty walk through the college campus to the bus station. Betty stops to fix Bruce's shirt, making him look more presentable. He spots a soldier moving behind a column of one of the buildings and tells Betty to get as far away from him as she can. Bruce bolts, and as the soldier moves in, Betty looks around for the command vehicle and convinces Ross to come out, begging him to stop. Bruce ducks into a library, removes his pack, fishes out the drive, and swallows it before moving on. However, the pause allows the soldiers to catch up to Bruce, trapping him under an overpass. As Blonsky moves in, they fire 2 canisters of knockout gas into the bridge, but Bruce transforms into the Hulk and leaps out, beginning to fight the soldiers by leaping around them and crushing their vehicles. Blonsky maneuvers around the Hulk like a mosquito, peppering him with rounds from a grenade launcher and leading him into the path of 2 sonic blasters. The blasters hit Hulk with sound waves, but when he sees Betty crying out, he dismantles the blasters using parts of a nearby sculpture. Enraged, Blonsky confronts Hulk and is slammed into a tree, breaking every bone in his body. Ross orders a helicopter just as Betty runs toward the Hulk. Hulk throws part of the statue at the chopper, causing it to crash and creating a huge inferno. Hulk shields Betty from the flames, though she loses consciousness, and he takes her to safety. The scene changes to a hospital where Blonsky lies in a bed, covered in plaster and plates with all his bones broken and immobile. Meanwhile, Bruce decides to head to New York to see Mr. Blue, believing he is the only one who can help him return to normal. On the way, Betty asks Bruce what it's like when he transforms. Bruce explains that everything is much more amplified. Betty suggests there might still be a part of him in the Hulk, citing the Hulk's recognition of her as evidence and wonders if Bruce could control it. Bruce interrupts, saying he just wants to get rid of it. The next day, they are in line at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge when Bruce notices a police checkpoint. They sneak out, avoid the checkpoint, and head to the docks. After a boat ride, they arrive in the city and take a cab to Empire State University, ESU, enduring a terrifying ride that has Betty screaming at the driver. At ESU, they meet Samuel Stearns, who is Mr. Blue. Stearns warns that if they miscalculate the antidote's dose, it could kill Bruce. Bruce warns that too low a dose could be dangerous, but Stearns dismisses this, clearly not believing him. Meanwhile, at a military base, soldiers prepare to move out. In a locker room, Blonsky examines himself in a mirror and notices his spine elongating slightly. He boards the chopper, and Ross asks how he feels. Blonsky responds that he feels like a monster. Stearns reveals he has synthesized Bruce's blood samples, which Bruce sent from Brazil, into a large supply to harness its limitless potential for medicine. Fearing the Hulk's power falling into the military's hands, Bruce decides to destroy the blood supply. He tells Samuel Stearns to get rid of all the samples before Blonsky arrives. At that moment, a sniper tags Bruce from outside just as Blonsky storms in, knocks him out, and shoves Betty aside roughly. Bruce and Betty are taken away in a helicopter, while Blonsky stays behind and orders Stearns to inject him with Bruce's blood, coveting the Hulk's power. The experiment mutates Blonsky into the Abomination, a creature with size and strength surpassing the Hulk's. He attacks Stearns, causing some of Bruce's blood to enter a cut on Stearns' forehead, beginning his own mutation. The Abomination rampages through Harlem, tearing up the streets and attacking soldiers. One soldier sends a message to Ross that the Hulk is loose. Ross, shocked, looks at Bruce, who is equally surprised. They manage to get a visual and see the Abomination destroying the city. Bruce realizes that only the Hulk can stop the Abomination, and Ross agrees. They move to the site and open the helicopter's back door. Betty begs Bruce not to do it, saying they don't know if he'll transform, but Bruce insists he has to try. They kiss, and Bruce allows himself to fall backward, transforming into the Hulk after hitting the ground. A fierce battle ensues throughout Harlem, and the Hulk defeats the Abomination by nearly strangling him with a chain. However, he spares the Abomination's life upon hearing Betty's plea and leaves him for Ross and his forces to arrest. After a brief, peaceful moment with Betty, the Hulk flees New York. A month later, Bruce is in Bella Coola, British Columbia. Instead of suppressing his transformation, he begins to control it, smirking slightly. Later, Tony Stark approaches Ross at a local bar and informs him that a team is being assembled. The movie ends with this revelation. Subscribe for more videos like this.